I found myself in a situation like this. My husband, Mark, is a prosperous businessman, constantly attached to his phone or absorbed in his work. While I admire his commitment, it often leaves me feeling ignored and isolated. As the days turned into weeks, I began to yearn for companionship and closeness, longing for the affection that had gradually disappeared from our relationship. I often pondered how I could reignite the passion in my life. The nights felt especially desolate when I would hear Mark's footsteps echoing throughout the house as he retreated to his office, leaving me in the stillness of our once lively home. I missed the excitement of romance, the comfort of a tender embrace, and the thrill of feeling wanted. My mind often wandered to my stepson, Jake, a handsome 24-year-old who had recently moved back in after finishing college. Jake had always been courteous and respectful, but there was an undeniable chemistry between us. He had matured into a striking young man, and I found myself stealing glances at him, my pulse quickening whenever our eyes met. I knew it was inappropriate, but the more I tried to suppress my feelings, the more intense they became. One afternoon, after spending the whole day waiting for Mark to return home, I decided to change clothes. I was about to slip into a silk robe when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I sighed, reminiscing about the days when I felt desired and attractive. I headed to the bedroom, eager to lose myself in thoughts of what might have been. I had just unhooked my bra and was about to put on my robe when I suddenly heard the door creak open. It was Jake, returning home unexpectedly. "Hey, Rebecca," he said casually, a bright smile spreading across his face as he walked in. My heart skipped a beat. I hastily grabbed my robe to cover myself, but it was already too late. Jake's eyes widened for a moment as he took in the sight of me. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," he stuttered, his gaze lingering on me just a moment too long. "It's fine," I said, attempting to remain composed. I was just changing. I felt a flush creep up my cheeks. We stood there in an awkward silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. I could feel a shift between us, a palpable energy that was impossible to ignore. Jake shifted his stance, his eyes flicking back to mine as though he was weighing something in his mind. "I should probably go," he finally said, stepping toward the door. "Wait," I called out softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to leave. We can talk." He hesitated, his gaze locked on mine. The desire simmering beneath the surface was undeniable, and I knew this was my chance to act. "Jake, I've been feeling a little lonely lately. It's hard being here without Mark around. I know we haven't really had a chance to connect the way we could." "I get it," he replied quietly, his voice low. "It's been strange with him being so busy all the time." Taking a deep breath, I felt a sudden surge of boldness. What if we spent some time together, just the two of us? To my surprise, a smile broke across his face. "I'd like that." Drawn by some invisible force, I stepped closer to him, the space between us closing until we were almost touching. I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. The chemistry between us was undeniable. "Jake, I need to be honest with you. I've thought about you more than I should have," I confessed, gazing into his eyes. "Me too," he admitted, stepping closer, the nervous excitement in his voice apparent. At that moment, all my doubts vanished, and I leaned in, capturing his lips with mine. The kiss started out hesitant, but soon deepened, sparking a fire within me that I hadn't felt in years. His hands found their way to my waist, pulling me closer as we melted into each other. I broke the kiss, breathless and exhilarated. "This is so wrong," I murmured, my heart racing. "Maybe, but it feels so right," he replied, his voice thick with desire. Before I could consider the consequences, I pulled him back into another kiss, my fingers tangling in his hair. The kiss quickly grew more passionate, his hands roaming across my back as I pressed against him. I could feel the heat emanating from his body, and every touch sent shivers down my spine. As we broke apart, I gazed into his eyes, seeing the same mix of excitement and fear reflected back at me. "Are we really doing this?" I whispered, breathless. "Yes," he said firmly, gripping me tighter and pressing against me. "I want this, Rebecca. I've wanted you for a long time." With those words, I felt a newfound confidence. I took a step back, took his hand, and led him toward the bed. The moment felt surreal, but I was ready to embrace it. As we sat at the edge of the bed, I leaned in closer, our lips meeting once more, this time with more intensity. Jake's hands wandered over my body, exploring every contour as I surrendered to his touch. The heat between us grew, sparking a passion I hadn't felt in years. My fingers traced his jaw, and I could see the desire smoldering in his eyes. "Let's not hold back," I breathed, feeling a rush of exhilaration from my own boldness. With a slight nod, he kissed me again, deeper this time. I could feel his body pressing against mine, warm and eager. My hands roamed over his chest, feeling the firm muscles beneath his shirt. I knew I wanted more, and the thought excited me. Slowly, I pushed him back onto the bed, straddling him as I kissed him with urgency. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a mix of surprise and longing. I could feel his heart beating fast beneath me, mirroring my own. "I never imagined this," he gasped, his hands gripping my hips. "Neither did I replied, my voice husky with desire, "but it feels too good to stop now." As we continued to kiss, I felt him responding to every movement, our bodies synchronizing. I slid my hands under his shirt, exploring his toned stomach, savoring the warmth of his skin. He let out a quiet groan, the sound sending shivers down my spine. "God, Rebecca, you're amazing," he whispered, his hands moving to my back, pulling me closer as I pressed against him. I loved the way he looked at me, the burning need in his eyes only boosting my confidence. "I want to feel you," I whispered, my voice thick with longing. "Then let's not waste any more time," he replied, his hands finding the edge of my robe and pulling it apart as I gasped at the sensation of exposure. His gaze took in my body, and I felt a rush of excitement. "You're stunning," he murmured, leaning in to kiss my collarbone, igniting a fire deep inside me. I could feel the heat growing, and I surrendered to the pleasure of the moment. His hands moved over my skin, sparking every nerve as he kissed his way down my neck, sending waves of pleasure through me. I moaned softly, arching my back as he continued his path of kisses. "More," I urged, my body craving him, filled with newfound confidence. Jake sat up, his hands gripping my waist as he flipped us over, pinning me against the bed. His eyes glinted with mischief and desire as he leaned in for another kiss, capturing my lips. I felt the weight of his body pressing into mine, every second charged with electricity. I grabbed his erection, surprised by its size. It was so big that I could barely hold it, and he moaned, signaling that he wanted more as well. We lost ourselves in each other, the world around us disappearing as we gave in to our desires. The room was filled with soft moans and the sound of our bodies moving together. Each touch, each kiss, was more intoxicating than the last. As we entwined ourselves, I felt a sense of liberation I hadn't experienced in years. I wanted to explore every inch of him, to lose myself completely in the moment. Our bodies moved in perfect harmony, igniting a fire that consumed us both. Eventually, as the intensity eased, we collapsed into each other's arms, catching our breath. I looked into Jake's eyes, feeling a joy and excitement I hadn't felt in ages. But just as I began to relax, the doorbell rang again, snapping me back to reality. "What was that?" I asked, my heart racing as I realized what was happening. "It's probably your husband," Jake said, his eyes wide with panic. "Mark wasn't supposed to be home for hours," I exclaimed, scrambling to fix my robe. "Quick, we need to hide," Jake urged, glancing toward the door. We jumped up, desperately trying to compose ourselves. Just as we managed to look somewhat presentable, I heard Mark's voice coming from the hallway. "Rebecca, are you home?" he called cheerfully. Yeah. In the bedroom," I responded, my heart pounding as I glanced at Jake, who looked just as flustered as I felt. "Stay quiet," Jake whispered, quickly slipping into the closet just as Mark walked in. Mark entered with a smile, spotting me. "I didn't think you'd be home." "How was your day?" he asked, stepping closer. "Just the usual," I replied, forcing a smile and trying to act as casual as possible. "How was yours?" "Busy as always," he said with a sigh. "But I thought I'd take a break and spend some time with you." I nodded, experiencing a mixture of guilt and exhilaration. Jake's presence still seemed to linger in the air, his warmth and the thrill of our shared moments. I forced myself to push those thoughts aside as I tried to engage with Mark, who appeared unaware of the tension hanging between us. As the evening wore on, Mark and I settled on the couch, exchanging casual conversation, but my mind constantly wandered back to Jake and the undeniable connection we had just shared. My heart raced each time I thought of it, sparking a fire within me that I couldn't suppress. A few days later, while Mark was away for another late-night meeting, I found myself alone at home once again. My thoughts consumed by the memory of our last encounter, I realized how much I missed the exhilaration of being desired, of feeling alive. I decided to take a long, soothing bath to relieve the tension, hoping it would calm my restless thoughts. I lit a few candles and filled the tub with warm water, letting the steam surround me as I soaked. My mind drifted back to Jake, the way his hands roamed my body, the passion in his kisses. It was intoxicating. I felt a surge of warmth at the thought and knew I had to see him again. Just then, I heard a gentle knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly wrapped a towel around myself before opening the door, finding Jake standing there with a playful grin on his face. "Hey," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I hope I'm not disturbing anything." "Not at all," I answered, my heart racing at his unexpected visit. "Come in." As he stepped into the bathroom, I felt a rush of excitement at having him so near again. "I was just taking a bath," I said shyly, trying to hide my nerves. "Looks tempting," he commented, his gaze lingering on me as I leaned against the doorframe. "Mind if I join you?" I hesitated for a brief moment, my heart racing at the thought of being so close to him once more, but the excitement was too strong to resist. "Sure. Why not?" In an instant, Jake entered the bathroom and closed the door behind him. The atmosphere felt electric with anticipation as I watched him undress slowly. My breath hitched as he revealed his sculpted physique. Every part of me yearned to touch him, to explore the warmth that radiated from him as he slid into the tub beside me. The warm water enveloped us, creating a bubble of intimacy. We exchanged nervous glances before our lips met in a heated kiss, the water splashing around us as I melted into him. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer while I tangled my fingers in his hair. The kisses deepened quickly, filled with hunger and longing as we lost ourselves in the moment. I could feel the heat of his body against mine, igniting a fire that spread through me. "You're even more stunning than I remember," Jake whispered against my lips, his breath warm against my skin. I smiled, feeling flattered. "And you're even more irresistible every time I see you." With newfound confidence, I pushed him back against the tub, straddling him as I pressed my body against his. The water swirled around us, but I was lost in the sensation of his skin against mine. My fingers traced his chest, savoring the feel of his muscles under my touch. "Rebecca," he breathed, his voice filled with longing. "You have no idea how much I've desired this." "Show me," I replied, my voice sultry as I leaned in for another kiss, this time more intense. The world outside seemed to disappear as we explored each other, the water mingling with our desires as our kisses grew more urgent. I could feel his hands roaming my body, tracing every curve as I lost myself in his touch. The thrill of being so close to him sent shivers down my spine, igniting every nerve in my body. I leaned back slightly, allowing him to kiss down my neck, savoring the sensation of his lips on my skin. "God, Jake," I gasped, my body arching toward him, craving more. With a low growl of desire, he cupped my face, his thumbs brushing over my cheeks as he pulled me in for another searing kiss. I could feel the heat between us building, a powerful force that drew us closer, urging us to explore even further. The water around us became a blur as we tangled together, lost in the heat of the moment. My hands roamed over his body, tracing his shoulders and down his arms as he deepened our kiss, every touch fueling the desire between us. Suddenly, I felt a surge of boldness and gently pulled back, locking eyes with him. "Let's take this further," I whispered, my pulse quickening with the thought. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice heavy with longing. "I've never been more certain about anything," I answered, my heart racing with anticipation. With that, we moved closer, the warm water enveloping us as we embraced the heat of our passion. We pressed against one another, our bodies intertwined in the moment, as our desire intensified. Our breaths mingled, and we lost ourselves in the bliss of being together, our worries fading as we gave in to our cravings, exploring every part of each other, feeling the intensity of our connection grow. It was a whirlwind of kisses, soft murmurs, and tender touches, leaving us breathless. Eventually, as the water cooled around us, we pulled away slightly, gazing into each other's eyes, feeling the bond that had blossomed between us. I felt alive, exhilarated, in a way I hadn't felt in years. But just as we started to relax, The sound of the front door echoed through the house, and we exchanged anxious glances. "Mark's home," I gasped, panic rising within me. "We have to leave now," Jake urged, scrambling out of the tub. We quickly dried off and put on our clothes, the tension thick as we hurried to appear normal. Just as I finished adjusting my hair, I heard Mark's voice call out again. "Rebecca, I'm back," he shouted. "We need to hide," Jake said urgently, glancing toward the door. I nodded, and we hurried into the closet, hearts racing as we heard Mark enter the bathroom. The two of us stood close together in the dark, our breaths coming fast as we waited for the tension to ease. Mark washed his hands at the sink, completely unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded in his home. "How was your day, Rebecca?" he asked casually. "Just relaxing," I responded, my heart pounding as I exchanged a nervous look with Jake. After a few tense moments, Mark finished and left the bathroom, allowing us to exhale in relief. "That was too close," Jake whispered, his eyes wide with excitement. "I know. I can't believe I started, but before I could finish, he leaned in and kissed me gently, reminding me of the thrill we just shared. "We can't stop now," he murmured, his voice filled with urgency. "This is only the beginning." My heart raced once more, torn between the thrill of our secret and the reality of my life with Mark. But deep down, I knew that whatever was happening between Jake and me was irresistible. I was ready to embrace this new journey, wherever it might take us. As we stepped out of the closet, the air between us crackled with electric anticipation. We both knew our lives would never be the same. The allure of the forbidden lingered, and I was ready to dive even deeper into this unexpected romance, no matter the cost.